The villagers always said the northern forest belonged to monsters. No hunter crossed its frozen trails after sunset. No child wandered close to the ancient pines. And whenever fresh paw prints appeared in the snow, every door in Grey Hollow was locked before nightfall. Because somewhere beyond the trees, the beast of Frostwood still lived. Some claimed it was a cursed alpha. Others swore it was a demon wearing a wolf skin. No one knew the truth. No one except fate. And fate had the strangest sense of humor. Because the only person destined to meet the beast was the clumsiest Omega in the entire valley. Elena! A sharp voice echoed across the snowy yard. If you break another bucket this week, you'll be paying for it until next winter. I'm trying, Elena called back. Unfortunately, trying had never prevented disasters. The 24-year-old Omega hurried across the icy courtyard balancing two wooden buckets overflowing with warm water. Her boots slipped. Oh no, she twisted. One bucket flew left. The other launched high into the air like a catapult. A full wave of steaming water crashed into something enormous emerging from the tree line. Silence. The forest itself seemed to stop breathing. Elena slowly raised her eyes. Standing less than 20 feet away was the largest black wolf she had ever seen. Its shoulders reached nearly to her chest. Its coat was darker than midnight. Its silver eyes seemed almost human. Steam drifted from soaked fur into the freezing morning air. Neither of them moved. Oh, Elena whispered. I don't suppose you're happy about that. The wolf simply stared. Not growling. Not attacking. Just watching. The silence became unbearable. So, she said nervously, I'd like to officially blame gravity. Nothing. I almost fell too. Still nothing. She sighed. This conversation is going terribly. One black ear twitched. For some reason, that tiny movement made her smile. There. I knew you understood me. The wolf looked profoundly unimpressed. Hidden behind those silver eyes, King Rowan Ashbourne questioned every terrible decision that had led him here. 3 nights earlier, assassins from rival packs had ambushed him during a diplomatic journey. To survive, he had shifted into his wolf form. His wounds had healed. His pride had not. Now the most feared Alpha King in the north stood dripping wet because an Omega had accidentally thrown bath water on him. If anyone in his kingdom ever discovered this, he would never recover. A cold wind swept through the clearing. Elena wrapped her arms around herself. That was when she noticed something everyone else would have ignored. The wolf wasn't dangerous. He was exhausted. His breathing came slower than it should. His paws trembled almost imperceptibly. One side of his thick fur had frozen into tangled clumps, where dried blood hid beneath the black coat. Her smile disappeared. Oh, she whispered. You're hurt. The wolf immediately turned away. Proud. Defensive. Trying to hide his weakness. Elena knew that look. She had worn it herself for years. After losing both parents, after being treated like a burden by nearly everyone in Grey Hollow, she had learned exactly how loneliness tried to disguise itself. She slowly crouched several feet away. I won't force you. But you don't have to pretend with me. The wolf remained motionless. Snowflakes drifted silently between them. You've been alone for a while, she said softly. Haven't you? Something flickered inside those silver eyes. Not fear. Recognition. Inside Rowan's heart, something shifted. No soldier. No noble. No advisor had looked at him that way in years. Everyone saw the crown. Everyone expected strength. No one ever asked whether he was tired. This strange Omega didn't see a king. She saw someone hurting. And somehow, that frightened him far more than the assassins ever had. Elena stood carefully. I'll be right back. She disappeared into her tiny cottage. Rowan considered leaving. He should leave. His royal guards were probably searching the entire kingdom by now. His council would already fear the worst. The kingdom needed its king. His feet refused to move. Moments later, the cottage door opened again. Elena returned carrying an old wool blanket, a small lantern, and something wrapped in cloth. She stopped several feet away. I know. You don't trust people. I don't either. She unfolded the cloth. Fresh roasted venison. The aroma drifted through the cold morning air. Rowan looked at the food, then at her, then back at the food. I wasn't sure what wolves liked, so I asked old Martha. She said meat. I figured she was probably right. Despite himself, one corner of Rowan's mouth almost lifted beneath his wolf muzzle. She really had asked someone. Elena placed everything on a flat stone before stepping back. I'm going inside. You can eat. You don't have to let me watch. She turned around, walked toward the cottage, opened the door, then quietly peeked back through the crack. Sorry, she whispered to herself. I just want to make sure you actually eat. The giant wolf stared at the ridiculous little spy hiding behind her own front door. For the first time in many years, King Rowan Ashbourne nearly laughed. Minutes later, Elena looked outside again. The meat was gone. The blanket remained. But something unexpected waited beside it. A perfectly polished silver pendant engraved with an unfamiliar crest. Not expensive enough to tempt thieves, yet crafted with extraordinary precision. She picked it up carefully. Huh, so that's your way of saying thank you? The giant wolf had already vanished into the forest. Only enormous paw prints remained in the fresh snow. Elena smiled to herself. I hope your home isn't too far away. She had no way of knowing that the mysterious creature had no intention of staying away for long. Hidden among the towering pines, the Alpha King looked back one final time at the little cottage with smoke curling from its chimney. For reasons he couldn't explain, it was the first place in years that had felt strangely peaceful. And before the sun rose again, he would find himself standing outside that same cottage once more. Not because duty demanded it, because his heart already had. The next morning, Elena opened her front door carrying a basket of fresh bread. She almost screamed. The giant black wolf was sitting quietly on her porch, exactly where she had left the blanket. He looked as though he had been waiting for hours. The morning sun painted his dark fur with streaks of silver. His expression remained unreadable. Only those impossible silver eyes followed her every movement. Elena blinked twice. You came back. The wolf blinked once. I thought wild wolves hated people. Silence. She tilted her head. Or, a playful smile slowly appeared. Did you come back because my cooking wasn't terrible? The enormous wolf looked away with remarkable dignity. Elena laughed. I'll take that as a compliment. Hidden behind his calm expression, King Rowan Ashbourne questioned his own sanity. He had ridden into countless battles, negotiated peace between ancient rival packs, faced creatures capable of tearing mountains apart. Yet somehow, he had returned to the tiny cottage of an Omega he had met less than a day ago. Not because he needed food, not because he needed shelter, because all night, he couldn't stop thinking about the way she had looked at him. Not with fear, not with admiration, simply with kindness. It had been so long, he barely remembered what that felt like. You know, Elena said while setting fresh bread on the porch railing, if you're planning to keep visiting, we should probably settle one important issue. The wolf watched her carefully. I can't keep calling you, hey, giant wolf. She folded her arms dramatically. You need a proper name. The wolf instantly became suspicious. She studied him thoughtfully. Midnight? He didn't react. Storm? Nothing. Captain Fluffy? The wolf actually looked offended. Elena burst into laughter. Okay, definitely not Captain Fluffy. She tapped her chin. Then her eyes brightened. I've got it. Onyx. The wolf remained perfectly still. Your fur shines like polished black stone. I like onyx. The giant wolf slowly closed his eyes. Apparently, he had just been renamed by someone who believed this required no permission whatsoever. The morning passed peacefully. Elena chopped firewood. Onyx followed. She repaired a broken fence. Onyx watched. She gathered herbs near the creek. Onyx silently walked beside her. Eventually, she stopped and turned around. You know, this is becoming a little suspicious. The wolf tilted his head. Everywhere I go. There you are. She narrowed her eyes. Are you guarding me? The Alpha King immediately looked toward the mountains as if the question had been directed at someone else. Elena smiled. I knew it. She didn't know she was right. Only, not in the way she imagined. Hidden among the surrounding hills, 3 armored riders watched through pine branches. The scouts weren't mistaken. The king is alive. The youngest knight lowered his voice. Should we approach? The commander immediately shook his head. Not yet. He hasn't shifted back. And look. The younger man frowned. Our king is carrying firewood. All 3 soldiers stared in stunned silence. No one dared speak again. Because the terrifying Alpha King they had served for 20 years was patiently walking beside an Omega carrying vegetables. As though protecting her mattered more than returning to the throne. Far away, inside Blackstone Keep, someone smiled after receiving entirely different news. So, Lord Magnus whispered while swirling dark wine inside a crystal goblet. Our beloved king survived. A servant nodded nervously. Yes, my lord. But he hasn't returned. Magnus smiled wider. Excellent. That means he's vulnerable. He slowly unfolded a weathered map. His finger stopped over one tiny location. Grey Hollow. So, find out why. And if someone has become important to him. The smile disappeared. Remove them. The servant bowed immediately. As you command. Meanwhile, Elena remained blissfully unaware. She sat beneath an old oak tree overlooking the valley while weaving dried lavender into small bundles. Onyx rested nearby. The gentle afternoon breeze carried the scent of pine, wildflowers, and fresh earth. It's funny, she said quietly. I've lived here my whole life. I always thought being alone didn't bother me. She smiled faintly. I guess I lied to myself. The wolf slowly lifted his head. When people think you're clumsy, they stop expecting much from you. They laugh. They pity you. They stop really seeing you. She laughed softly. I suppose that's easier than disappointing people. A long silence settled between them. Then, something warm brushed gently against her shoulder. She looked down. The giant black wolf had rested his head beside her. Not asking. Not demanding. Simply, staying. Elena smiled. I knew you understood. She scratched gently behind one ear. You've been lonely too. Rowan closed his eyes. No one had touched him with such simple affection since his mother died. That evening, a violent storm rolled across the valley. Rain battered the roof. Thunder shook the mountains. Elena secured every window before kneeling beside the fireplace. Looks like you're trapped here tonight. She looked toward the giant wolf. I don't suppose kings live any better than this. The words were meant as a joke. Yet, something flickered inside Rowan's silver eyes. For a brief second, he almost told her the truth. Instead, he quietly lay beside the fire, watching the flames dance across the room, watching the woman who unknowingly made him forget every burden waiting beyond these mountains. Near midnight, a sharp sound shattered the peaceful silence. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Not thunder. Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, circling the cottage. Rowan's ears snapped upright. Every instinct inside the Alpha King exploded into warning. Outside, at least 6 strangers had surrounded the house. And, from the scent drifting beneath the door, they weren't hunters. They were assassins. The same ones who had nearly killed him 3 nights earlier. Only this time, they had discovered something far more dangerous than the king himself. They had discovered the woman he could no longer bear to lose. The first arrow shattered the kitchen window. Glass exploded across the wooden floor. Down. Although Elena had no idea who shouted, she instinctively dropped beside the table. The next heartbeat, the giant black wolf crashed through the room like black lightning. A second arrow struck exactly where Elena had been standing. The wooden wall splintered. Outside, 6 masked figures emerged from the darkness. Each carried silver-bladed crossbows. Each wore the same crimson insignia stitched onto black cloaks. The Blood Fong. Rowan's silver eyes turned cold. He recognized them instantly. They had followed him farther than he expected. Which meant only one thing. Someone inside the capital had betrayed him. Again. The assassins spread into a perfect circle around the cottage. One stepped forward. Bring us the wolf. You may keep your life. Elena's hands trembled. They weren't here for her. They wanted Onyx. She slowly looked toward the enormous black wolf standing protectively in front of her. Rain soaked his fur. His body remained perfectly still. Only his eyes burned. He was calculating distances, escape routes, the number of enemies, the direction of every heartbeat outside. This wasn't the look of a wild animal. It was the look of a commander. The assassin raised his crossbow. You have 5 seconds. Elena surprised everyone, including herself. No. The man frowned. What? He stays. You heard me. She stepped beside the giant wolf. If you want him, you'll have to go through me first. For a heartbeat, the forest became completely silent. The assassin stared. Rowan stared. Even the storm seemed to pause. Inside Rowan's heart, something broke. People had sworn loyalty to his crown. Thousands would die for their king. But no one had ever stood between danger and him without knowing who he was. Elena wasn't protecting a king. She believed she was protecting a lonely stray. And somehow, that made it infinitely more precious. The leader sighed. Kill the girl. Everything happened at once. Crossbows fired. Rowan moved. His massive body collided with Elena, knocking her safely behind the stone fireplace. Arrows struck the walls, the floor, the heavy wooden door. One silver bolt buried itself deep into Rowan's shoulder. He didn't make a sound. He simply kept standing, blocking every path toward Elena. Onyx. She reached toward him. Warm blood stained her fingertips. No. No, no. You idiot. Why would you do that? Because there had never been another choice. Outside, the assassins advanced. The cottage wouldn't hold much longer. The commander smiled beneath his hood. He's weakening. Finish this. Before anyone could move, a long howl shattered the night. Not one wolf. Dozens. The sound rolled through the mountains like thunder. Every assassin froze. The leader slowly looked toward the northern ridge. No. It can't be. Golden eyes appeared among the trees. Then another. And another. Within seconds, the entire forest seemed alive. The Royal Shadow Guard. The king's elite wolf warriors. They had finally found him. The battle lasted less than 3 minutes. Steel clashed. Wolves struck from every direction. The Bloodfang assassins never had time to regroup. Some fled into the storm. Most never escaped the forest. When silence finally returned, only rain remained. The commander of the royal guard dropped to one knee. My king. Every warrior followed immediately. Forgive us. We arrived too late. Elena blinked. King. No one answered. Every knight kept their head lowered. None dared speak before their ruler. Elena slowly turned toward the giant black wolf. He stood motionless. The rain washed crimson blood across his black fur. My king. The words barely escaped her lips. The wolf closed his eyes. He hadn't wanted her to learn this way. Before Rowan could decide what to do, the silver arrow buried in his shoulder began to glow. Pain tore through every muscle. His breathing became ragged. The moon emerged from behind the clouds. Its pale light spilled across the clearing. Every wolf around him immediately looked away. My king. The commander whispered urgently. Not here. It's too late. Silver light exploded around Rowan's body. The forest vanished beneath blinding moonlight. Elena instinctively shielded her eyes. The enormous black wolf disappeared, and a man collapsed into the rain. Tall, broad-shouldered. His dark hair clung to his face. Ancient scars crossed his bare chest. And when he slowly lifted his head, she found herself staring into the same impossible silver eyes. The same eyes that had silently watched her laugh, followed her through the forest, accepted her ridiculous nickname, rested beside her fireplace, held every secret. Her voice trembled. Onyx. A faint smile touched his lips. My name, he whispered, is Rowan Ashbourne. I am the Alpha King. The world seemed to stop turning. The rain disappeared. The forest disappeared. Every memory came crashing together. The blanket, the roasted venison, the quiet walks, the gentle head resting on her shoulder, the warmth beside the fireplace. Every moment had belonged to the most powerful alpha in the kingdom. Tears blurred Elena's vision, not because he had lied, because she suddenly understood why his eyes had always looked so unbearably lonely. Before anyone could speak again, Rowan's body swayed. The poisoned silver arrow had done what the assassins never could. The Alpha King collapsed, straight into Elena's arms. And for the first time since they met, she realized the fate of an entire kingdom might now rest inside her tiny cottage. For one terrifying moment, Elena forgot how to breathe. The weight of Rowan's unconscious body settled against her as rain poured from the night sky. He wasn't a wolf anymore. He wasn't simply Onyx. He was a man. A king. And he was dying. Move. The commander of the Royal Shadow Guard rushed forward. We must return His Majesty to the capital immediately. No. Every warrior froze. The word had come from Elena. She tightened her arms around Rowan. The silver poison is still spreading. If you move him now, he'll never survive the journey. The commander frowned. And how would an Omega know that? Elena looked down at the black veins slowly creeping beneath Rowan's skin. My mother was the village healer. She taught me how moonsilver poison behaves. It attacks faster whenever the victim is forced to move. The commander hesitated. He knew she was right. But leaving the Alpha King inside an unprotected cottage? Unthinkable. We don't have another choice. Elena's voice was calm now. Bring him inside. No one moved. Every knight looked toward their commander. Finally, the old warrior lowered his head. Do as she says. For the first time in history, the Royal Shadow Guard accepted orders from an unknown Omega. Inside the tiny cottage, the atmosphere changed completely. The humble home that had once smelled of fresh bread and lavender became an emergency sanctuary. Blankets covered the floor. Water boiled over the fireplace. Medicinal herbs filled the air. Outside, 20 elite wolf warriors surrounded the cottage in complete silence. No bird dared sing. No stranger dared approach. The king slept only a few feet away. Elena carefully examined the wound. Her expression darkened. The arrow wasn't meant to kill. The commander looked surprised. What? It was meant to prevent him from shifting. She gently touched the silver fragments embedded beneath Rowan's skin. Every time he uses his alpha power, the poison spreads deeper. Silence filled the room. The commander slowly clenched his fists. Someone knew exactly how to defeat him. Someone inside the palace. Hours passed. The fever only worsened. Rowan drifted in and out of consciousness. Sometimes, he whispered names. Names of soldiers who had died under his command. Names of people he had failed to save. At one point, his hand suddenly gripped Elena's wrist. Don't, he murmured. Not again. I couldn't save them. Elena looked at the commander. What happened? The old warrior remained silent for a long time. Finally, he answered. 7 years ago. The previous king died. His Majesty was only 21. Before he even finished mourning, he inherited a kingdom already on the edge of civil war. He never stopped fighting after that. He saved everyone else. Except himself. Elena quietly looked back at Rowan. So that was why his eyes had always carried so much loneliness. Near dawn, the fever suddenly became violent. Rowan's breathing turned ragged. Silver light flickered beneath his skin. The poison had reached his heart. He won't last another hour. One of the healers whispered. The commander closed his eyes. Every knight lowered their heads. No one wanted to watch their king die. Elena refused to accept it. There has to be another way. The elderly healer hesitated. There is. But no one has attempted it in generations. What is it? The moonroot bloom. Everyone inside the cottage fell silent. The commander's face turned pale. Impossible. It only blooms inside Frostfang Ravine. And that forest belongs to the Ice Wraith. No one who enters ever comes back. Elena stood immediately. Then I'll go. No. Every warrior answered at once. You'll die. She looked toward Rowan. If I stay, he dies. The room fell silent again. The commander stepped forward. I'll send 50 warriors. The old healer slowly shook his head. It won't matter. The moonroot bloom only reveals itself to someone who enters without greed. Soldiers seeking victory. Nobles seeking power. Healers seeking fame. The flower disappears from all of them. He looked directly at Elena. But someone trying to save only one person might succeed. The commander understood. This wasn't a battle that could be won with swords. It required a heart untouched by ambition. Only one person in the room qualified. Outside, the first light of dawn spread across the mountains. Elena quietly packed a small satchel, a lantern, a hunting knife, a coil of rope, the faded blue scarf she had knitted for Onyx. She hesitated, then gently wrapped it around Rowan's neck once more. It looked ridiculous before. She smiled through tears. But I think it suits you now. His unconscious fingers weakly brushed against the scarf. As though recognizing it, she leaned closer. Her forehead touched his for just a moment. You don't get to leave yet. You still owe me a lifetime of stealing my apples. A faint smile, barely visible, appeared at the corner of Rowan's lips. None of them noticed. Outside the circle of royal guards, a pair of cold eyes watched from deep within the forest. Lord Magnus lowered the spyglass. So, he smiled slowly. The little Omega means that much to him. Perfect. He no longer needed to hunt the Alpha King. He had discovered something far more vulnerable. The king's heart. Magnus turned toward the shadow standing behind him. Send the Black Hunters. Do not kill the girl. Bring her to me alive. If the king survives, she will become the chain that drags him to his knees. Completely unaware, Elena stepped alone into the frozen wilderness. Ahead of her lay Frostfang Ravine. Behind her, the Alpha King fought for his life. And hidden among the snow-covered cliffs, something ancient had already awakened. It had guarded the moonroot bloom for over 1,000 years. This morning, it sensed someone approaching. Not with fear, not with greed, but with a love powerful enough to change the fate of an entire kingdom. By sunset, Frostfang Ravine had swallowed every trace of warmth. The snow no longer drifted. It fell in heavy silence. Even the wind seemed afraid to cross the ancient valley. Elena tightened her cloak and continued walking. Every instinct told her to turn back. Every heartbeat reminded her why she couldn't. Somewhere behind her, Rowan was running out of time. Back at the cottage, the fever had become unbearable. The silver poison continued spreading through Rowan's veins like burning ice. His breathing grew weaker. The royal healers exchanged helpless glances. We've done everything, one quietly whispered. The commander didn't answer. His eyes never left the unconscious king. Then, without warning, Rowan spoke. Elena. The room froze. Another whisper escaped him. Don't go. The commander slowly lowered his head. He had served Rowan for 23 years. He had heard his king speak the names of fallen soldiers. His parents. His people. Never had he heard him call one name with so much fear. Miles away, Elena climbed deeper into the ravine. The path disappeared beneath untouched snow. Jagged cliffs surrounded her like the walls of an ancient fortress. Suddenly, she heard it. A low growl. Not behind her. Not ahead. Everywhere. 3 enormous white wolves emerged from the blizzard. Each stood nearly as tall as a horse. Their pale eyes glowed like frozen moons. The guardians of Frostfang. Legends said no outsider had ever passed them alive. One stepped forward. Its voice echoed directly inside her mind. Why do you seek the moonroot bloom? Elena swallowed. To save someone. A king. She nodded. The second guardian growled. Kings have started wars. Kings have shed blood. Why should one more live? Elena remained silent for a long moment. Then, she shook her head. I'm not here because he's a king. The wolves watched her carefully. I'm here because he's Rowan. He laughs when I make terrible jokes. He pretends not to like my cooking. He followed me everywhere even when he thought I didn't notice. He spent weeks protecting me. Before I ever knew his name. Her voice broke. I don't want a kingdom. I just don't want to lose him. Silence returned to the ravine. Snow drifted gently between them. The oldest guardian slowly stepped aside. Then pass. The flower answers only to a heart that loves the person more than the crown. Far above the valley, hidden among the cliffs, another pair of eyes watched everything. Lord Magnus smiled coldly. So that's the secret. The king has finally become weak. He turned toward 20 elite black hunters hidden in the snow. Wait until she finds the flower. Then take her. Alive. Deep inside the ravine, a soft silver glow illuminated the darkness. Elena stopped breathing. At the center of an ancient frozen spring, one single flower bloomed beneath crystal ice. Its petals shimmered with moonlight. The legendary moonroot bloom. She stepped forward carefully. The moment her fingers touched its stem, the ice surrounding the spring melted instantly. Warm light spread across the valley. The flower opened completely, almost as though it had been waiting for her. Tears filled Elena's eyes. I found you. She gently lifted the flower into her hands. At that exact moment, an arrow struck the ground inches from her feet. Don't move. 20 masked hunters surrounded the spring. Magnus slowly emerged from the shadows. Elegant. Calm. Smiling. How fortunate. You saved me weeks of searching. Elena instinctively stepped backward. You know who I am? I know everything. He looked at the flower. I know the Alpha King is dying. I know. His smile widened. He would sacrifice his kingdom. To save you. He extended one hand. Give me the moonroot. She tightened her grip. No. Magnus sighed. Pity. He nodded once. The hunters raised their crossbows. You have one final choice. The flower. Or your life. Elena looked down at the glowing blossom. Then toward the darkening sky. If she surrendered it, Rowan would die. If she refused, she would never leave this valley. Slowly, she closed her eyes. I choose him. The hunters released their arrows. At that exact same moment, back inside the cottage, Rowan's silver eyes flew open. The Alpha Bond. He felt it. Not through magic. Through love. His heart pounded once. Twice. Then violently. He saw fragments. Snow. Blood. Elena standing alone. Magnus. Crossbows. His entire body erupted with raw alpha power. The silver poison spread instantly. Every healer shouted at once. No. If you transform now, you'll die. Rowan ignored them. He staggered to his feet. The blue scarf Elena had wrapped around his neck slipped onto the floor. His silver eyes burned brighter than anyone had ever seen. For the first time in his reign, the Alpha King made a choice, not as a ruler, but as a man. I will not, he whispered, lose her. Moonlight exploded through the cottage. The wall shook. Every wolf outside instinctively bowed. Even poisoned. Even dying. The true Alpha King had awakened. And before dawn, the entire kingdom would witness how terrifying love could make the strongest king alive. The first arrow never reached Elena. A wall of black fur crashed through the blizzard. The impact shattered 3 hunters before they even understood what had happened. A deafening roar echoed across Frostfang Ravine. Every wolf in the valley instinctively lowered its head. The Alpha King had come. Rowan. Elena whispered. Her heart stopped. He shouldn't have been here. The silver poison still burned beneath his skin. Dark veins glowed through his massive shoulders. Every breath looked painful. Yet he stood between her and 20 armed killers. Exactly as he had on the night they first attacked the cottage. Only this time, he was fighting death itself. Lord Magnus slowly smiled. So, you really came. The giant wolf answered with another earth-shaking growl. The mountain trembled. Snow cascaded from towering cliffs. Magnus laughed quietly. Interesting. You've chosen one woman. Over an entire kingdom. For the first time, the Alpha King answered. Not with words. With action. He charged. The battle became legend. No soldier would ever tell it the same way. Some swore Rowan moved faster than lightning. Others claimed the moon itself had answered his rage. The truth was simpler. A king who had nothing left to lose had become unstoppable. Hunters fell one after another. Crossbows snapped. Steel shattered. Even wounded, even poisoned, Rowan fought with terrifying precision. But every strike cost him. The silver poison spread deeper. His movements slowed. Blood stained the snow beneath his paws. Magnus noticed. He smiled. "You've already lost." He drew a narrow silver dagger from beneath his cloak. Its blade shimmered with black runes. "The poison doesn't need me anymore. It will finish the rest." He vanished into the storm. Then suddenly, he appeared behind Elena. The dagger flashed. Everything happened in a heartbeat. Rowan saw it. He didn't hesitate. He leaped. The blade meant for Elena buried itself deep into his chest. Time stopped. "No!" Elena's scream echoed across the valley. Rowan collapsed onto the frozen ground. The blizzard seemed to fall silent. Even the ancient guardian wolves lowered their heads. Magnus stepped backward. Satisfied. "It ends here." He disappeared into the storm before anyone could stop him. Elena dropped beside Rowan. His wolf form flickered. Silver light surrounded him. Moments later, the enormous wolf was gone. Rowan lay in the snow. His breathing barely existed. The blue scarf she had knitted was stained crimson. Tears blurred her vision. "You promised," she whispered. "You still owe me. A lifetime of stolen apples." No answer. She looked down at the moonroot bloom still glowing softly in her trembling hands. The old healer's words returned. The flower answered only to a heart without greed. She crushed the blossom carefully. Silver light flowed like liquid moonlight into Rowan's wound. Nothing happened. Her heart sank. Then, a warm breeze crossed the frozen valley. Impossible. Spring, inside the heart of winter. The light spread across Rowan's body. The black veins slowly disappeared. His breathing steadied. Color returned to his face. Moments later, his silver eyes opened. The very first thing he saw was Elena crying. He smiled weakly. "I suppose," he whispered, "I'm stealing your flowers now." Elena laughed through tears. "You are impossible. I've been told that before." She threw her arms around him. This time, he held her just as tightly. Neither cared who was watching. 3 days later, the gates of Blackstone Keep opened. For the first time in history, the Alpha King returned home, not alone. Thousands of wolves lined the streets. Warriors, children, elders, nobles. Every eye rested on the young Omega walking beside their king. Whispers spread through the crowd. "That's her. The woman who saved His Majesty. The woman who crossed Frostfang Ravine. The woman who chose him." Before she knew he wore a crown. Rowan stopped at the palace steps. Instead of climbing them, he turned toward Elena. "You once asked where my home was." She nodded. "I thought it was here." He looked back at the enormous palace. The marble halls. The royal banners. The throne that had ruled his life for years. Then he looked at her. "I was wrong." He gently took both of her hands. "My home has always been wherever you are." Silence swept across the entire courtyard. Even the wind seemed to stop. Rowan slowly knelt on one knee. Every noble gasped. Every warrior stared. No Alpha King had ever knelt before anyone. Not in over 800 years. He looked into Elena's eyes. "Elena Ashwood, I have asked kingdoms for loyalty. I have asked warriors for courage. I have asked the moon goddess for strength. But today, I ask only one woman. For her heart. Will you spend the rest of your life making every palace feel like that little cottage beside the forest?" Tears rolled down Elena's cheeks. She smiled exactly the way she had the morning she accidentally threw warm water onto a giant black wolf. "Only," she whispered, "if you promise something." He smiled. "Anything. No more stealing my apples." The Alpha King laughed. A real laugh. Free from duty. Free from loneliness. "I can't promise that." She laughed too. "Then, I'll have to keep watching you forever." "I was hoping you would." 1 year later, travelers passing through the northern kingdom often heard an unusual story. Not about the Alpha King who defeated his enemies. Not about the ruler who united every pack. Instead, they heard about a tiny cottage beside Silver Lake. A place where the king still disappeared whenever royal meetings became too exhausting. Where lavender bloomed beside the windows every spring. Where a faded blue scarf still hung beside the fireplace. Where 2 wooden buckets remained on the porch because Elena refused to throw them away. They remind me, she always said with a smile, of the happiest accident of my life. Sometimes, children visiting the cottage would ask why the Alpha King always laughed whenever someone mentioned apples. Neither Rowan nor Elena ever explained. They simply looked at each other and smiled. Because some love stories didn't begin with destiny. They began with a clumsy omega, 2 wooden buckets, and a giant black wolf who came back the next morning because he had already found home.